Hello, and thanks for joining today's webinar from Real Story Group. Excited to have you here, and I'm excited to also welcome our founder, Tony Byrne, and our principal analyst, Scott Simmons, for today's presentation, which is a very interesting topic. We're hearing from a lot of our customers that are getting pushed towards, Sitecore XM Cloud, and we're here to provide you with some ideas on what's next for you as you're licensing XP and what your options are moving forward. So it's certainly something that we're very passionate about. We've been following the web content management space for over 24 years now, and it's a market that we continue to follow with great excitement. So thanks for taking some time out of your day to join us. As we get started, I just wanted to provide a quick little background about Real Story Group for those that are new to us. We're an industry analyst firm that has taken a different approach than your sort of traditional analyst firms in that we only sit on the buyer side of the table and never work for or advise the vendors that we cover in any way. So when we talk about a vendor like Sitecore, we always have your best interest in mind in helping you find the solutions that are going to be the right fit for you. And so you can expect to hear from us what these vendors do well, but also maybe more importantly, what they don't do so well as well. I also wanted to note here as we get going, we will have time at the end for questions. So if you have any questions or anecdotes you'd like to share, you can enter those into the questions tab and then go to webinar control panel. And these slides will be available and sent to you from our marketing team within the next couple of days. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to Tony to take us through our next couple of slides and enjoy today's presentation. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Scott D. Many of you have seen our famous or infamous vendor map where we have different technologies that we cover drawn out as kind of subway lines or tube lines on a map. And we've been doing this now for about close to 20 years. The oldest line on this map is the light blue line, which is the web content and experience management line, which, as Scott D mentioned, we've been covering for about 25 years now. And you can see Sitecore in here, definitely one that we've been watching closely. I'd say, geez, since maybe at least 2004. And now, of course, they also purport to sell other things. And so we've got multiple stops for them on the line. They may, as Scott S will show shortly, we may have to remove one of those, but it's definitely what analyst firms call a fragmented marketplace, which means that you have a heck of a lot of vendors to choose from, not just more generally in your MarTech stack, but certainly with respect to web content and experience management, you have a lot of choices and quite frankly, a lot of good choices. So that's always useful for the customer. So this is one way of looking at the MarTech environment, but I think the other way that's really important is to understand what the contemporary stack looks like. So this is our kind of generic reference model for the 2020s, particularly for a B2C firm. We also have a separate B2B version that's structurally not that much different, but the idea here is that this is kind of a generic view of the world, and we use this when we're working with our clients to sort of modify it to their particular needs. But the idea is that you have these engagement channels at the top, those are expanding all the time. You've got various interaction delivery environments. Then you have this first colored layer in the middle, which are engagement services. And that's where you see web content and inbound experiences in the sort of green badge box. We've been spending a lot of time, certainly starting in the 2010s, kind of beefing up that engagement layer. The argument that we're making here, though, is that even more important for the 2020s is the layer underneath it. We have enterprise foundation services that can support multiple different engagement services. In other words, these foundation services are decoupled from those engagement services. It's really causing I think it's a little fair to call it a revolution in stack architectures this decade. It's certainly ongoing. Many companies are still in the early stages, and Scott Simmons will have more to say about this, but the story that we're setting up here is that web content and experience management is now just one piece of your MarTech stack, both with respect to looking at this horizontally, where it's one service among a number of different engagement services, but also vertically, where increasingly it's going to have to play more nicely with other foundation services and deliver some of those services in a different kind of way. And so this is reshaping the whole architecture of web content management. And Sitecore is really kind of smack right in the middle of trying to change itself amid this revolution. But for that, let's turn it over to my colleague, Scott Simmons, to tell you more.
Thank you, Tony. I'm Scott Simmons, Principal Analyst at the Real Story Group, and I'm glad you could join us. Today's session is laser focused on a very specific audience, Sitecore XP customers, the ones holding active licenses and trying to make smart, forward-looking decisions. We're going to cover a lot of ground in the next 25 to 30 minutes, and I promise to keep it focused, honest, and vendor neutral. I'll start by framing the problem. We'll then take a quick look at the current Sitecore strategy, and we'll finish with our recommendations on where to go next. So let's dive in. Sitecore is in transition. It's probably been in transition for the past 5 to 10 years. And if you're running XP, you're at a crossroads. You've got a system that's still powering your digital experience, but you're also watching a platform vendor shift its center of gravity towards cloud-native composable services. Today, I'll give you a clear-eyed view of what that shift means for XP licensees, what's working, what's fading, and what alternatives you may want to explore. This isn't about hype or nostalgia. It's about pragmatic decision-making for enterprise digital leaders. Let's get into the details. Let's start with what you know best, XP. It's a monolith, but a capable one. CMS, analytics, personalization, all tightly integrated. You invested heavily in it and either have an internal maintenance team or you're paying a vendor to maintain it. But here's the reality. The roadmap is shrinking. The pace of updates is slow. Security fixes? Yes. Major innovations? Some, but they come with a caveat. Generally more integration time and more capabilities, although those with low use haven't been ported to the newer tools. And there are some, like web forms and analytics, that will require non-Sitecore replacements. If you stay, you're supported for now, but you're not moving forward. XM Cloud is Sitecore's answer to the future. It's SaaS native, composable, and headless. There's no more .NET upgrade tax unless your team chooses to use the ASP.NET Core SDK for the front end, but that's optional. XM Cloud is front-end agnostic, which is a plus for teams working with modern frameworks like React or Next.js. That's the upside. The downside, this isn't a drop-in replacement for XP. You're not just upgrading, you're re-architecting. You'll need to rebuild workflows, personalization, integrations, and even your editorial experience from scratch. And to make things murkier, while Sitecore has long positioned Personalize, I'll talk about that a bit more in a minute, as a composable successor to XP's built-in targeting tools, a year ago they added embedded personalization back into XM Cloud itself. So now you've got two different personalization models, one modular and one bundled, and it's not always clear when to use which. Sitecore's composable story is real, but inconsistent. XM Cloud mixes old and new models, and buyers are left to sort through the contradictions. That's not modernization, that's confusion. Content Hub is where Sitecore arguably offers the most maturity today. If you're managing complex, multi-channel content operations, it's a strong option. It combines digital asset management, creative management, and planning in a unified product. That said, if your content lifecycle isn't complex, or if your team isn't resourced to support it, it will feel like overkill. Sitecore Search is quietly becoming a bigger part of Sitecore's strategy. It's absorbing much of what was originally in Discover, including AI-based recommendations. So it's not just for search boxes. It's becoming an on-site discovery platform. It can be used with XP, but with your Solar requirements, it's probably not the best value. And like many of these newer tools, search adds more complexity than clarity unless you're already deep into the Sitecore cloud. Then there's Sitecore Connect, their integration platform as a service. It's meant to simplify connectivity across CDP, ERP, commerce, and more, but it has a limited set of connectors for XP. It doesn't replace a real iPaaS or even an ETL platform. It's a patch to Sitecore's own modular gaps, Helpful sometimes, strategic, not really. If you already have something like Databricks or Boomi, you should probably use it instead. Order Cloud serves specialized commerce needs. It's potentially a good fit for headless commerce APIs, but adoption is niche, and if you're not building custom commerce apps, it likely won't apply. Sitecore Stream is a new AI-focused capability, and I call it a capability only because that's how Sitecore organizes it on its site. It's really another product or service that you need to pay for. And it promises a lot. Real-time agentic event flow across XP or XM, CDP, and Content Hub for orchestration, along with generative content, brand-aligned project briefs, copy and asset variants, etc. It's pitched as the AI connective layer across the entire modern Sitecore stack. But let's be realistic. It's ambitious, but largely unproven. And integration is complex, especially if you're still on XP. Stream feels more like a roadmap narrative than an operational pillar, at least today. If your data ops and stack aren't already modern, it might introduce more questions than answers. And finally, Send, formerly Moosend. And as of this year, it's being divested to Constant Contact. That removes the only native outbound marketing tool in Sitecore's modern portfolio. If you're using EXM today on XP or Moosend, you'll now need to integrate a third-party ESP. Sitecore is no longer offering a unified single vendor DXP. You'll need to orchestrate your own best-of-breed stack, even if you stay loyal to the brand. Where is Sitecore headed? This is a tough one. The Moosend sale reinforces Sitecore focus on content and experience, not outbound execution. It's a strategic call, but one that potentially forces you to rethink your marketing stack and connectivity model. This is one of the first big moves under the new CEO. Sitecore has experienced significant leadership churn that I blogged about a few weeks ago, 3 CEOs in 5 years. And with each new executive team comes a slightly new version of Composable, and customers are left recalibrating plans. That kind of volatility creates friction for long-term planning, especially if you're still on XP. Sitecore says XP is supported, and it technically is. I was actually surprised by the release of 10.4, which pushes mainstream support for XP out to December of 2027. But it still requires you to perform the costly upgrades to stay compliant. However, the product gravity, the engineering, the roadmap, the marketing strategy is clearly around XM Cloud and Content Hub. XP is being maintained, not advanced. You're at a real inflection point. A move to XM Cloud isn't just costly, it's transformational. And if you're going to rebuild, you should evaluate the full field, not just Sitecore's latest. So, what should you do next? There are a few key trends that will drive your decision. First is the rise of omni-channel content platforms. These platforms reflect a shift from narrowly focused headless CMS tools to systems built for component reuse, flexible content relationships, and measurable channel-neutral delivery. The new foundation for customer-centered experiences. This foundational system trend extends beyond content and also includes data, customer, prospects, orders, and whatever else drives your marketing engine, and decisioning, the tools used to test and optimize your experiences, drive personalization, and orchestrate experiences across all channels. This is driven by the need to coordinate marketing across all channels to meet the customer or prospect where they are. Channel marketing is disappearing and being replaced with operational roles that work across foundational systems to support all channels. So what does this mean for inbound web? Whether you're staying in the Sitecore orbit or considering alternatives, this isn't about migrating from XP. It's about building toward a modern web architecture. Tony will be hosting a webinar on this in a few weeks, but here's a primer. A new legless model is emerging in the WCM space that shifts the need to a less complex platform. We call this WCM 4.0. Key content, data, and personalization logic reside in the foundational lower-level channel-neutral platforms. Core component marketing content is sourced from DAM and OCPs. These systems become the enterprise digital content management platform of record, at least for component channel-independent content. WCM becomes an aggregator for inbound experiences, leveraging components from different systems, and continues to manage channel-specific long-form content. That means separating your content services from your experience management and stitching best-fit platforms together with clear governance. Simply moving to XM Cloud won't get you there. Yes, it's SaaS, yes, it's composable, but it's already old technology. If you treat it as an XP upgrade, you'll inherit technical debt in a cloud wrapper. To be clear, some Sitecore components may absolutely belong in WCM 4.0. Content Hub, for example, can serve as a modular content engine. CDP or Personalized could work too, but just because you have XP doesn't mean these products are the right fit for your modern architecture. If it even existed, the days of the one vendor DXP are over, and Sitecore is telling you that through its own product roadmaps. It's no longer one platform, it's a multi-vendor stack. Now is the time to re-architect, not just re-platform. Start with a stack audit. Which XP features are essential? Where are the actual experience gaps? Is your foundation, your content, your data, your decisioning strong? Then map solutions to functions, not vendors. You might land on XM Cloud and Content Hub, but if you do the work, you'll land on a stack that truly meets your needs for the next 5+ years. The goal is WCM 4.0, not just a new Sitecore SKU. Replatforming for the sake of alignment to vendor strategy won't get you where the market is headed. Architect for your needs. Select tools intentionally and design for flexibility. To wrap, you face a critical choice. You can upgrade with the Sitecore ecosystem or use this moment to modernize and reimagine your stack entirely. Whatever you choose, make it a strategic decision, not just a path of least resistance. Let's take some questions if there are any.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. While we're accumulating some questions here, I'll just remind folks that you can use the Go to Webinar Questions tab to ask any questions, share your experience. If there's anything you agree with or disagree with, we definitely have some time to entertain that. While we're reviewing the questions, I'll invite Scott Dill to just talk about potential next steps here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, guys, for especially Scott for that presentation. And wanted to let you all know that you can download our research samples just to get a sense of how we're evaluating each of these solutions and sort of that pull no punches approach that we take in describing the vendor strengths and weaknesses. You can also explore our Stack Leadership Council, which is a group that gets together quarterly to really learn from each other best practices. And we'll be meeting again next month and looking at a MarTech org chart show and tell. So if that's something you'd like to explore, please feel free to contact us. And we do have another webinar that's coming up in 2 weeks. That's going to be more focused on CDP selection. So Tony's going to walk us through that session about the right way to select a customer data platform. So if that's interesting to you, please feel free to join us on that one. Any questions coming through that you're seeing on your side, either Tony or Scott?
Yeah, so I'll start with this one. Scott, you know, this whole thing has been focused on Sitecore, and there's a question that comes like, well, what would you say about the other big, WCM vendors? If we're arguing this is an architectural change, wouldn't you say the same thing about them?
Definitely. This problem is not just a Sitecore problem. I think what highlights it on the Sitecore side is kind of the end of life of XP, right? It's 2027, but 2027 is going to come much faster than you expect.
Okay, so the other question is, we're presently on Sitecore XP, and it's working pretty well for us right now. It's complicated, but we've mastered it. And we're getting pressure from Sitecore because they want us to change from a persistent license to an annual subscription license, and along with XM. We obviously would like to avoid that because we're getting a good deal. So what should this licensee do? They're on XP, it's working okay for them, so they say, and they're reluctant to go to XM Cloud because it's going to be a big leap in licensing cost and model, even after the migration. So what should they do, Scott?
Yeah, we are seeing that a lot, and you need to be careful because the model in a lot of cases changes to a consumption-based model, which, if you don't have your hands around everything, cost could easily get out much higher than you've even anticipated. My recommendation is the exact recommendation which I said here, is take a step back, right? Reevaluate your needs and look at all your options. Don't just jump ahead into Sitecore's kind of next model.
Okay. The other question is, for this individual, it seems like they have a largely in-house Sitecore team that's all versed in .NET and Microsoft technologies. How much, if they look beyond Sitecore for their WCM capabilities going forward, their web CMS capabilities, how much should they focus on Microsoft-oriented technologies, since that's where their development and ops team kind of have history with?
Yeah, I mean, those are hard choices to make in organizations, but they happen all the time. What I would say is there are options for you, right? There are definitely Microsoft.NET paths that are outside of Sitecore, but maybe Sitecore is still your fit because of that. What I would say is, the front end technology is moving away from .NET, becoming more React, Next.js based, and I would focus more on trying to build teams from an experience perspective around that, and then maybe figure out a way to reskill your .NET teams to either manage that or something else within your org.
Great. So that wraps it up today. Thanks for a really compact discussion, fellas. Look forward to seeing you all on the next Real Story Group webinar, either a fortnight from today or a month from today. So on behalf of my colleagues, Scott Simmons and Scott Dill, this is Tony Byrne saying so long for now. See you next time.
Thanks, Tony.